Namaste and welcome to Glocal Khabar.
आपका दोस्त ग्लोबल और लोकल खबरों के लिए।
क्या हाल चाल है लोकल?
यू नो व्हाट ग्लोबल, सब बढ़िया नहीं है।
अरे क्या हुआ?
ग्लोबल, तुम्हें नहीं पता that there are many countries fighting against each other?
Hmm, you're right. But any specific country that you would like to talk about?
Yes. Why not to talk about the present crisis of Israel?
Yes, that's true. I'm hearing a lot of disturbing news about the present Israeli war. But do you know the history of it?
Now, let's deep dwell in the historical underpinnings of the Israeli war. Yeah, global, the history is very interesting. And more importantly, you'll find this that the present crisis which has been happening, it has its great correlation with the history that has happened. So are you ready to hear this?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So global, the situation dates back to almost World War II. And if you can tell me, global, that World War II was being fought between which two parties? Means, yeah, we know that it was fascist, but fascist fought with whom?
Let me just go back in the memory lane. You see, as far as I remember, fascism was origined in Europe, right? Stalin and the former Soviet and today's Italy region, probably somewhere there. Maybe you can tell me better.
If we look back into the Palestinian conflict global, we'll find that the war started from 1939. It was during the World War II. The World War II, we all know that it started from 1939 and went till 1945. And you rightly guessed that it was basically a European players global which were involved into a war. So one were the fascists, the other were the likes of allies. And allies have been represented by the likes of United Kingdom, and also they had their allies from Soviet as well. So it was basically Adolf Hitler global who tried to invade the regions of Poland, and that served as the precipitating factor for the conflict. But one of the major problems which allies had global, and this is something which is very interesting, that allies wanted what it is called an in-ground information, in-ground surveillance to the things, and that is where the likes of Jewish came into play, because it was the Jewish who were being prosecuted by the fascist regime, but it was also the Jews who were very closer to the fascist regime as well, because it was their presence which was dominating into the area where basically fascists were ruling. So they help in providing in-ground experiences to the allies, and finally the allies won the war. And you know, global,
Okay.
let's say that if I fulfill your promises, right, would you be rewarding me?
Yes, of course.
But sounds like on both the sides, the same players are there. It's just like present day Russia and Ukraine, two brothers fighting against each other. It's a very hard choice, local. I'm really dumbfolded. I don't know what to say and whom to support.
Interesting. But again, global, the point is that let's say that if you give me a task, if I complete that task, obviously, right, you'd be so very much happy and you'd also be rewarding me as well. And since we understood, as per our last conversation, that it was these so-called Jewish people who helped the allies of United Kingdom to give the in-ground surveillance and in-ground intel to them against the fascist regime, there was this understanding that was being made global. And that understanding was the Jews demanded their own land. But the allies was refused. The allies said that why do you want your own land? You have the Western country, you have the likes of London, you have the likes of Washington, you have the likes of Moscow, and you can all live in this region. But you know what the Jewish said? The Jews cannot come out from the dark pages of history global because Jews know that yes, Hitler has been defeated. But who knows? The so-called new Nazis may emerge. Who knows? The 21st century Hitler may emerge. Who knows that Washington may become the new Berlin? Who knows that London may become the new Berlin? So the best thing which the Jews could have asked at that time is to seek their own land. And finally, it is the West which has to succumb to the pressure, and the land was being given. And this is how global, right? The so-called land of Israel was being formed, and it was being formed onto the Palestinian land. Does it sound very
Wow.
interesting, global?
Wow, yeah, it sounds very interesting, local. Thank you for telling me this. Yes, I was aware that allies are fighting, and that part of history is very clear, but now the reasoning makes a lot of sense.
It does global. And again, since we say, right, rest is history. Whatever has been happening, right, it has been happening from that end. And there has been also some major conflict that has happened. The likes of 1948 conflict between the Palestinian people and between Israel, the likes of 1973, which is called the Yom Kippur War, and then the recent crisis which has happened since 7th of October. But as we demand global. We seek for peace, we seek for diplomacy, and we seek for prosperity to prevail, and we seek for that rightful people must be given their rightful land.
Very, very true. Yes, everybody deserves their own land, and no community or tribe should be prosecuted just for having their own set of beliefs. And we can all learn to live in peace and harmony. I mean, that is why the United Nations was set up, wasn't it?
It is, yes. And it's very interesting since you mentioned about the likes of United Nations Global, right? When a land Israel was being given, the land Israel come under the dominance of the Western countries because it was the Western countries who won the war against the fascists and they became what it is called a unilateral player. They became a single player and they created their whole centric environment and institutions across the world. And this is how United Nations came into being global, right?
Yes, of course. Do you want to improve your current affairs and geopolitical knowledge? Wait for the next episodes of Glocal Khabar. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.